Okay. Here's a union break shower thought. So, I finally thought about it a little bit more and thinking about the evil in the world. God is so overwhelmed with it. And I kept thinking when people would say and when it would say in the Bible, God wants people to turn from their evil ways. He wants evil to stop. His will, His will, His will. Well, evil's still permitted to happen. It's still permitted. But why is it permitted if it's His will? If He can ultimately stop that child from being murdered or this from happening. But it's His will, but His will reigns. He can choose to do whatever He wants. Yet it also says, where was the devil banished? It wasn't hell. He's not gatekeeping hell with horns. No, He was sent to rule the world. And it's interesting because we're in this world which clearly has an evil presence everywhere you go. It's evident that there's something wrong here, but you have to think, why doesn't He just fix it? Of course, the easy answer is because you can't have humans that have free will, yet also have the opportunity to love. You can't have moist robots, as Frank Turk would say. You can't just have these robots that just do what you want, but also can have a relationship with you. That doesn't work. And that's obviously a simple and very true answer. But to get more deep into it, we know instances where God can prevent evil. And He does, and we take advantage of it. There's so many times. This world would be obviously very, very dead and sick and ridden with evil if He didn't make sure that certain things were prevented. Obviously, He has His hands on things in many ways. But why does some evil still happen? And it got to me to the point where I realized His will is looking down at this guy about to kill someone. And it is just sadness. It is sadness to think he's going to do this. And I've let him have free will, and he's going to do this. And it's going to kill this person. And His will would be that they wouldn't do that. His want would obviously be, don't commit that evil. But why doesn't He stop it? Only His mind can comprehend or even fathom the amount of effects that come because this guy's gonna do this sick thing. Gosh, and it freaking sucks. But then, because he's going to do that, what can happen from it? Example, there are people who are called to have a relationship with God. They feel that finally they've decided, I'm going to start praying. I'm going to start believing. I'm going to start talking to Him. And it is by the motivation of, even as something as simple as a news story, woman and child murdered. And they become some sort of speaker about the subject. They decide, I need to know this because this is evil, this is sick, this is twisted. How come? And they decide to pursue Him because of something as simple as all the evil that they've observed. That person gets the chance to be platformed. That person gets the chance to be speaking to others. That person decides to be able to get on a stage where millions listen, where millions now have the opportunity to have a relationship with Christ. And so, to understand that only God would know, because that woman and child who died on a news story that I gave as a random example, but that nucleus of the story, that start, is what led to what? To potentially millions of people getting to know Him because this person decided to get motivated. When this person dies, we might never understand why that can help. We won't. But the truth is, we know that it's possible, and it's somewhere deep in the meaning. I mean, the worst things he has to be sad and terribly, terribly upset about. But it's because he has to give us this free will. And because this world there's no equation. You can't make this world where people can exist and choose to love, but they won't do sick and twisted things. And then now that they can, how do you, the ultimate mitigator of the world, navigate it so that if I stop this right now, the ripple effect won't be drastic and people will be saved. But if I stop that guy from doing this, that's going to lead to AJ never having this happen to him. And then he will never pursue me at the exact time he needed to with the right passion, which would have opened doors for his family and his kids and his friends. And it's awful. It must be awful to be God sometimes. Like, I mean, all the time, of course. But to know that there's so much that you are mitigating. I mean, he knows. He knew it all before it started. Because having anything's better than nothing. Having any souls that want love is better than having nothing. It's all, of course, far more complicated to think about that subject. But to think evil must exist. It must. It has to, because you can't let this world with complicated creatures and souls and personalities like us exist without it. And because the evil exists, as it says, you will not know the lightness unless you even know the darkness. You will never know what light looks like unless you've seen the dark. You have no idea what a shadow is without the sun. Absolutely no idea. And so, to think about this has really just opened my eyes just now, because I think about all sorts of evil. I mean, even if, God forbid, like my wife were to like get in a big accident and something bad happened, and it's like, gosh, that driver was allowed to hit her. Why? Why, God? And this is the vitality of trust. And it's like, it's stunning. It's overwhelming sometimes, and that's why we're supposed to not overthink. Do not lean on your own understanding, because it is so out of our realm. We are not the ultimate mitigator of the universe. We are not. And to really look at it like that makes it make sense. There is so much evil that happens, and sometimes he can like prevent it and stop it right there. And that's what prayer is for, is because he can have that relationship where he knows you're gonna pray. It's just so beautifully complicated. But then when that is permitted to happen, why is that permitted to happen? And it's like, for all I know, so many things have benefited in my relationship with Christ because of simply hearing about evil. The call to prayer is real. The call to thinking, slowing down, embracing, hugging your family members, understanding, loving better, getting closer. Why? Because we saw something awful. And it is like overwhelming to think about. That's just an interpretation that I realize is true. That is true. Is that why? Why does that evil happen? Why is that baby allowed to be like in that garbage can and found lifeless? And it's like, what was the purpose of that? But then that cop who found him wept. And then they realized evil is real. And then what did they do? Maybe nothing at first, but then they spend months thinking about it. PTSD from it. Awful stuff. But then they realize they need to pray. They need to have a relationship with the Creator, because that might be real. And for all we know, that person finally has a family who he sheds that knowledge to, who he helps with, who he loves, all because of that awful, awful instance. It is infinitesimal how far this goes, but it's extremely, extremely complicated and must be so overwhelming. Of course, God can do anything. He can handle anything logically. But I just thought about that, and I realized that that is why anything bad happens. I can even rewind instances in my life where obviously terrible things have happened, including from personal family members perishing or just the worst things ever. Friends, young, cancer. Why? And then I realized I would not have my train of thought, my relationship with him, if exactly what happened didn't happen. So, there's my thought. That was a lot of words, if it makes any sense. My brain kind of moves faster than my mouth sometimes, or vice versa. But either way, that's my union thought.